Ketamine Bladder. What it is, how long I've had it for, what was the cause of it, all of these little topic things I'm going to kind of like touch on. Not in any specific order, I'm just going to kind of free flow this because I've wanted to do this video for a while and I keep putting it off because I'm not a doctor, but I think this is a very important video to make because there's nothing on it. I don't know, there's still nothing on it really. And when I was in the midst of it, I couldn't find a damn thing. And I just thought that I was going to end up having my bladder removed. First of all, ketamine bladder, also known as ketamine-induced cystitis. For years, probably 2 years, I was going back and forth to the doctors, and they kept on telling me that I had cystitis. Obviously, I wouldn't be completely truthful with my GP and the doctors at the time. So I kept on getting these little sachet things. They were putting me on these tablets and nothing was working. And I ended up going on cocodamols, and then because they just didn't agree with me, I ended up on a repeat prescription forever for tramadol. I think the reason why I want to make this video is because I knew that there were certain things that come along with taking a lot of cat, but I didn't think it would get to this extent with me even know what I was doing. Because I knew that I was messing up. I knew that I had a hole in my nose. I knew that it was not something that I could really sustain forever because I just weren't physically well anymore. When I first started doing it, I was fine. I was a functioning addict. I had a full-time job at the time. Where I was bouncing back and forth different factory work and stuff, but I was always working. And then when this happened and it got to like the worst stage, I had to come off work for years. Only went back into work going back last year, and I still have to be a little bit careful with what I'm doing because of the damage that I've already done to my body. Obviously, in the midst of this all happening, I was seeing a drug support worker. Because of everything that happened, I was like made to go to see a drug support worker, and my drug support worker was the one that pretty much told me, look, this is what you could have, because like all you do is like I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't go out in the cars, I couldn't do nothing. But when I would meet her for like an hour, have a coffee and a cafe or whatever, and I would have about 3 or 4 peas in a space of like 45 minutes or something. And she noticed this over a period of time, and then she had said that maybe this is where you're going. Obviously, in that midst, I started doing my own research and stuff, and then it sounded very, very familiar. Then I went to the GP. She kind of pressured me into going to the GP. She was like, look, you need to go. Look, this health is important, which I'm very grateful for her doing. And when I seen the GP, I was just completely honest with him, which is going to lead me into talking about the NHS, because my experience with the NHS of ketamine bladder was fucking awful. I know that the NHS is on its last legs, but the things that happened was just unacceptable. So I just want to read you guys this, because I want some factually correct things 100% in here before I ramble on. Ketamine is metabolized in the liver, and its byproducts are they excrete through the urine. These metabolites, I think that's how you pronounce that, can irritate and damage the bladder lining, leading to inflammation, scarring, and in severe cases, bladder shrinkage. So you can see from just that sentence, it's not a very pretty thing to happen to anyone. It was probably the most invasive thing that's ever happened to me, the most painful thing, and still to this day affects me. And I just want to read some of these symptoms to you, and then I'm just going to completely come off this and just ramble. Symptoms: frequent urination, urinary urgency, painful urination, a hematuria, blood in the urine, very, very common, incontinence, unable to control the urine, pretty much, pelvic pain, something that I still deal with to this day. Then it's got something called I didn't even know this was a word, necrotria. I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong. It's just a posh word for saying you wake up in the night a lot of the times to go to the toilet. Bladder capacity reduction, still something I deal with. So frequently you needing to go to the toilet. I don't really have that as much unless I have if I go out for food and then I'm drinking like fizzy drinks or whatever I'm drinking, then I'll need to go. That's why I kind of just stick to water. Urinary urgency, don't really have that anymore. Painful urination when I'm dehydrated, I get that all the time. Blood in urine, I would say that I don't have that, but then again, if I am very, very dehydrated, it can sometimes look like blood, which is fucking gross. But this is just the nitty gritty of what I'm trying to explain. It's not very pretty. Um, Incontinence, I don't really have that. I did have that at one point, but it was not that I was like pissing myself or anything. It was just I physically could because I was on cat. I would need a pee, but I couldn't. My body just didn't know how to do it, and that's what can lead to the scarring and stuff. And I can go into so what happens is when you're obviously taking everything in, everything gets filtered, doesn't it? So it's getting filtered through. It gets filtered through everywhere, your liver, your kidneys, but ketamine seems to affect your kidneys and your liver. I've got pictures of scarring that I'm going to add in now. I had a hot water bottle and I scolded myself with it. And I used to continuously do that. That's why I ended up getting all my ribs and my armpits and that tattooed because it was all under my armpit at one point as well. Pelvic pain, I still deal with that. Waking up multiple times in the night to urinate, no more than the average person, but when I was going through it, I could not sleep. I was waking up every hour to every half hour. And when I was awake, it was every 10, 15 minutes I was needing to go. Um, Bladder capacity reduction. This is something that I still deal with because I had to have my bladder stretched through it. So as I said, in severe cases, bladder shrinkage. What that means is because of so if you was just taking cat every weekend and you was having like 1 or 2 grams, it's probably not going to affect you. And I think the reason why it affected me as severe as it did was because I was quite young when I started taking drugs. So my body weren't fully developed. Obviously, I didn't know this at the time. Well, I didn't know this at the time. I didn't have a clue. But now looking at it, now I know that that's probably the reason why my body kind of like shut down as quick as it did. But in that sense, long story short, what ended up happening was because of the amount that I was intaking, it was getting filtered through all my body and going into my bladder. And because I was living with my parents and I couldn't sometimes physically pee, or I would just hold it in because I didn't want people to see me wrecked, I created loads of crystallization inside my bladder. So the inner walls of your bladder affects, and it does affect the outside, but it's more of the scarring, I believe, that affects the outside walls of your bladder. When I ended up getting my urologist appointment, like I said, I waited like nearly 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years. I never stopped taking it, and I made it a lot more worse. When they went in with they had, do you know, like when girls are pregnant and they have the scan with the jelly on their stomach? I had that first, and they were like, "Shit, your bladder's like really, really small." So they said that I think it was like 10 centimeters. I'm not even sure. It was around about this. I can remember them doing this to me. It was around about that, and I had to then have a operation because they were doing urinary sample things, and they said that they didn't know what was causing it because they didn't know what ketamine bladder was. So when I went to my urologist, I was explaining to him what it was, and he was trying to say to me, he was like, no, 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 you've got overactive bladder syndrome. And I was like, mate, I don't, I'm telling you, like, I've done this to myself, and I need you to, like, help me fix it. I was like, I'm not being like, oh my God, is this on you now? It's like, this is my doing. I caused it. I'm not saying that, but I need help. Like, but he was adamant that it wasn't Ketamine Bladder. And he didn't know what it was. He was like, so what is Ketamine Bladder? What is Ketamine Bladder? So I had to explain to my urologist what it was. He did some digging, he found out, and then he sent me then for this scan. And then the scan lady was like, you need to have an operation because otherwise your bladder is going to get so small that you're going to end up having to have it removed. That was probably the scariest shit and the scariest conversation that I've ever had in my whole entire life. You have to remember as well, when all this was happening, I was 20. I think I was 20 or I was 21. 21. Between 20 and 22. Because at that point is where I started trying to come off everything, and it just not failed miserably. I was still taking the steps, but I just was not 100% committed to it. It was almost like I knew that it was that everyone else wanted me to do it, but I kind of internally didn't want to do it myself. I was almost pushing to see how far I could push it. And I just want to read a couple of these. So these are the long-term consequences of it. So you got permanent bladder damage, which is what I have. Urinary retraction, unable to empty the bladder properly. Don't know if I have that. Kidney damage. Thank fuck I don't have that, because kidney pains is one of the most horrific pains I've ever had to deal with when I was actively going through, because I was like phoning the doctors and stuff. I was like, I think I got a kidney stone because I know it can give you that. But thank God I don't have that. And then you got severe chronic pain. That's what I have. That's why I'm on tramadol, and I'll have to stay on that for the rest of my life. And I have gabapentin, but that's for a different thing. But I never really take them. I take them as and when I need. Surgical removal of the bladder, and that is called a cystectomy. Cystectomy? Definitely pronounced it wrong anyway. I was very, very close to having a bladder removal. And I think the most annoying thing is when I had my bladder stretched, my urologist kind of just discharged me then. It was the end of that. I had the bladder thing. It didn't work. I was going back and forth. And they were like, look, we don't know what to do. We're going to have to discharge you. And if you need us more help in the future, you can come back. I've been on the waiting list now for another year. I haven't heard nothing back from them yet because the bladder pain is still there. I went vegetarian, because I've seen a study that vegetarians' internal organ linings heal at like a higher rate. So I went vegetarian, and it still hurts. It's a lot better. It's nothing like it was before, but it's definitely still there. I must have been like this close to having my bladder removed. Because I was taking, so at the start of it was once in a blue moon, well, it was every weekend, but it was like, that's kind of how it was. It weren't anything more than that. Then it obviously went every day, but I was doing like maybe 1 or 2 grams a day. Then it went to 3 grams, 3.5-ish. Then it went to 6 grams. I stayed at 6 grams for a while, I did. And I talked about it in one of my last videos. I went up to 12.5 grams pretty much every day or every other day. Oh, hello. Look who's come to say hello. Disturbing the peace in you. Yes, you are. Go on now. That's Milo, by the way, and there's fluff everywhere now. It's shredding season, so it's great. But I must have been this close, because obviously my bladder pain is still there. That has been 3 years. I've been technically off drugs, but I only classed 2 of them because I had a slip up. But 3 years I haven't taken care every day like I used to. Milo, your hair is everywhere. So in them 3 years, my bladder is still not great. It's a lot better. I wouldn't, like before it was unbearable. But when I come out of the operation, the first thing I did was go and buy a bag of cat. So there's no point saying the operation didn't work, because I didn't really even allow my body to heal. And I just continued to do the same thing that put me in the same in the situation that I was in hospital in anyway, which is stupid and bizarre. But when you're in that midst of things, you do stupid and irrational things. Treatment. So I'm going to read this as well. So obviously, first thing, stop ketamine use. Pretty obvious, yeah, but it should be easier said than done, but it's not. Pain management, opioids, severe cases, bladder installations with pain relief in medicines. So I'd imagine that if you was just on the verge of having your bladder removed, or you had to have it removed, but not fully, that they would put like rods into you, they would pump in medicine to try and heal it, I think. Medications, anti-inflammatory drugs, etc., etc. Physical therapy. This is something that I never did. Oh no, the urologist did actually, because I'm reading the thing here and it says pelvic floor therapy and pain management. So they told me about pelvic floor muscle retraction thing, like the muscle when you tense and what girls have to do when they're like having bad pains with their period and stuff. So yeah, I learned a few things that not most men have to ever do in their life. But yeah, I did that. It does not work for me. I don't understand the logic behind them thinking that if you squeeze it, it's gonna stop hurting because it's not like the same as a woman's period cramp or anything. It is scarring and open wounds inside your body. Like you can tense up as much as you want. It's not gonna fix it. And then it says bladder reconstruction surgery. That is one thing that I hope to God when I go and see this new urologist that they do not put me down for. Anything they put me down for, operation wise, I will not do. I tried the last one. I know that I didn't give it the chance and stuff, but just the whole being with the urologist, not having the urologist not know what ketamine bladder was, then doing this operation, which I later found out that when you stretch in your bladder, if you've got loads of ketamine damage to it, it can sometimes make it worse. So, and this is why I'm getting facts up because these are just things that I have read through doing consistent research, through going over all the pain and stuff, and reading other people's horror stories and stuff. You kind of have a mixture of fact and other people's opinions with things because the thing is, this isn't ketamine bladder. It isn't actually well known. Like for an NHS doctor not to know what ketamine bladder was, that's how not well known it is. But there was a research center, like a hospital, which they treated people for with ketamine bladder problems. And this is where I'm getting at, where I didn't like the NHS at all, the way that they dealt with me. And when they discharged me, I didn't like kind of fight to stay with them because they were just fucking stupid. There was a place up in Bristol. I'm in Wales. Bristol's England. And there was a centre up there because ketamine use up there is like mad, mad crazy. And they would have specific doctors that are specialised in ketamine bladder. But you needed to be referred for a urologist or GP or something. When I asked my GP said that it would look better and it would come quicker coming from the urologist. I asked him and he was like, no, you don't need that, you don't need that. So they were just very, very apprehensive on sending me to England to get surgery because they didn't really know what they were doing. So what happened after my operation? I obviously explained that I just can't continue doing my own thing and the pain just got more and more unbearable. That leads us to today now. Today, I have changed everything. I work out a lot, and I was the most unathletic person ever growing up. I eat healthy to an extent. I mean, I eat a lot of carbs sometimes, but as a vegetarian, that's mostly what I'm a lot of carbs and veg. So, but on the broader scale, I changed my whole lifestyle. I changed the way that my activity level was. I changed my physical level. I become really, really fit in myself. And the gym helps, 100%. I haven't been to the gym in 2 days because my car is in the garage. These 2 days now, my bladder started flaring up. So that's something that I will probably have to do for the rest of my life. Just like even as little workouts, so going taking the dog for walks and stuff. I have to be physically active, otherwise the pain gets so unbearable that I can't stand properly. So my body will kind of like hunch. So when I stand up, when it's in really bad pain, I'll be like this, and my body will like freeze in like a certain. It's like it will not let me move. My body like, do you know like when people get arthritis in their fingers and their fingers go like this in like the winter? That's what my body does. But the pain is coming from just under my belly button, and then it'll be like in my urethra pipe. I think that's how you pronounce it anyway. That is something that I'm potentially going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. And that is through no one else's fault but my own. And if there's anything that I want people to kind of like get across with this message that I'm trying to get across, is to, so it's such a difficult one because like you have to make your own decision for yourself at the end of the day. And it took me to get to the point where I had to have my bladder stretched, and having a catheter put in and then having the catheter removed was like one of the most invasive things. And I was just like, I can't deal with that. And then I was like looking at photos of what a catheter would look like if I needed one. And you get like a hole here. It's not pretty to look at. Like your sex life would be gone, your relationship life would be gone. Unless you found someone that was very, very accepting on things, but like all of your self esteem would be shot. And I didn't really have that much to begin with anyway. So that's where I made the change to knock it on the head. And I thought it was going to be so fucking easy. It wasn't. It was the goddamn hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. And I'm so thankful that I did it. I have friends that have catheters, friends, really good friends I used to hang around with all the time. And it's just really sad. It's really sad to see what this drug has done and what it continues to do to people, and how much research isn't really put into this one drug. It's a class B. It's literally in the same class as weed. And I used to love that when I was taking it, because I was like, oh shit, if I ever get caught with the police, it's just like getting caught with a bag of weed, you know? But you know, on the broader scale of things, that is so messed up. Like ketamine and weed, I think that if all drugs were legal, there would be no drug crime in it. But that's not a realistic world. But putting weed and ketamine in the same category just doesn't make sense to me. It literally doesn't make sense to me. I know that they both have healing property type of things. Like I know they use ketamine infusions for, I think it's like PTSD and stuff, to try and help people with trauma and that. And they also use it if there's people being in really, really bad car crashes, because it literally fucking numbs you. It's what's the word? It's like an anesthesia, isn't it? Like they will give it to you, they'll pump it in a liquid form to you, and you will not feel anything. That is not the same thing as weed. I don't give a shit what anyone says. Weed and ketamine, totally different things. I don't even think weed should be on the drug scale, but I understand why it's there. People always ask me and my partner this as well, because my partner had a problem. He had a problem with crystal meth. I had a problem with ketamine. Very polar opposite drugs, okay? And that's why I think we kind of work, because when people found out that we were both kind of like dating and stuff, they're like, this is a recipe for disaster. You're both going to end up fucked on, he's going to end up fucked on meth and cat, and you're going to end up fucked on meth and cat. And it just didn't end up that way. Don't get me wrong, it could have. It was a big risk that we took, and it could have gone that way. But I think that's why we're very good for each other, is because he liked something that I just didn't like. It wasn't for me. My ex used to do that shit and I just didn't like it, and I kind of associated with a very bad crowd. And I hate to say that, but that's just, and it's the same with like other drugs. There's certain drugs that I do just like, I'm like, you can't do certain drugs in any type of social situation. And I feel like crack, heroin, and meth, and GHB, they are the top four that you just can't do in social situations. So we just kind of balanced each other. It was never like, I was never like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do this. And he was never like that with me either. And I think that's what balanced us out very, very well. People always ask how we got clean. And it's probably the most annoying one to explain to people because it is something you have to figure out for yourself. But what we ended up doing is we ended up cutting everyone off. I just cut everyone off. And he did as well. So I cut all my friends off. I moved in with my partner then, and he still had his clique. He still had the people that he was still hanging around with, but he weren't doing anything with them. In his own time, he literally come round to the idea. He was like, well, this is never gonna work. Like I'm in this space now, and they're in that space, and it's something you have to figure out on yourself. You can't say to someone, cut all your friends off, because like sometimes it can work, sometimes it can't. Like, I cut all of my friends off, and I kept two of friends for years, and they were the two worst friends that I could have kept. So, like the best advice that I can say is go ghost mode, train, do something, find a hobby, and just become the best version of yourself in that moment. But a lot of people always reach out. My partner posted a before and after picture of him with crystal meth, and a couple of people reached out to me on my page asking, so I thought I would bring that up. I think they reached out to me though because I think people get me and him oddly mixed up all the time. So yeah, they get us always mixed up. But yeah, very very different drugs, but we brought each other out of it, which is what I'm very proud of, and which is why I make these videos now because people just always come to me. They always message me, and they're always like, "Oh, my partner's going through this, or I'm going through this." Like, what? Like, they just ask for advice, and like, I've always been that type of person to always give advice to people and help people in any way, in shape and form that I can. And I think that it would be better to do it on a broader scale. But nobody talks about this. Nobody talks about ketamine bladder, and it just blows my mind because I know loads of people that got it and that have got lifelong problems from it, including myself. And before we go, I just want to make a quick little like how to know if you have ketamine bladder because I tend to ramble quite a lot. And I just want to do like a couple of things that I noticed when I was having ketamine bladder. And this is going to probably come across as quite gross because I am going to talk a little bit personal now. Obviously, pain when you're urinating, specifically in your urethra. So, like, right under, I'm not, it's so weird, like, explaining this, but that's exactly what it is. And the pain feels like burning razors. That is the only way I can describe it. It feels like hot burning razors coming out. It's not very nice. Back pain. I had a lot of back pain from it. Specifically like here. Like so like by your kidneys and stuff. That all of it was hurting. So obviously not being able to like hold a pee in very long and feeling like that when you're done, that you're not done fully, if that makes any sense. It's so bizarre because like I'm kind of like grossing myself out by saying this because it's like reminding me, but it's just the fact this is something that I went through, and this is something that a lot of people in the world go through, but people don't want to talk about because it's not very fucking pretty, and I don't care. I'm fine with sharing the nitty gritty parts of life. So yeah, there's the bladder pain, well, the urethra pain. There's the back pain that I was having. I was, this is the part. I was, when I was having a pee, I could feel things coming out. Okay, it's so fucking gross, and that was the lining of my bladder that I was pissing out. So, because it was happening at one point very, very frequently, I can remember I peed into a cup because I knew it was going to happen. I could feel it. So it would happen like halfway through a pee. And I could feel it about to happen. So I like, grabbed a cup quickly and I peed in it and I could see it. And it was like a congealed jelly of blood. It was disgusting. And it had like all white around it. It was fucking gross. But like, they're the signs that I would look out for. They're disgusting to talk about, but it's just the truth about it. Like they are this, if you feel like that you've got a ketamine bladder problem, more than likely you do. Like, no one's really that much of a hypochondriac that if you loved ketamine so much that you're going to turn yourself into hating it by throwing yourself off it, by being like, "Oh, I've got ketamine bladder," but it's not. If you think you've got something going on, you should probably go and seek some help. You definitely get some sort of drug support or anything. And I'm gonna put like a couple of like links in the description for people to just go and talk to people. And I'm also going to put some links of maybe like a website that you can see the symptoms yourself and see if any of them match with you. And if it does, go to your GP and just be completely honest with them. Don't lie. Don't be like, I don't take drugs and all this, because they're going to give you tablets and medication for something that you don't have, and it could potentially make it worse. So that's it for this video, guys. I'm going to leave her at that. If you want me to do a follow-up video of a specific topic with involving ketamine bladder or something that I've talked about in this video, please let me know, because I could go on and on and on about this topic, because it's something that obviously I dealt with in the past and I still am dealing with now. And I know little tips and tricks that can help with the pain. I know little things and stuff. So if you want me to do a follow-up video on this, let me know. And yeah, stay safe, guys. Remember that this is a peaceful channel. You are loved. And yes, I will see you next week.